Hi, Josh Barker with RE/MAX Town & Country Real Estate, and this is a market update for Shasta County real estate for the month of April 2020. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into the sales report for last month, and I'll leave that slide up here on the right for you. I'll zoom in. Last month there was 237 properties that closed escrow here in Shasta County. If you go back 1 year ago, the number was 292. So our sales are down by just over 18%, or I should say our closings are down by just over 18% over last year. Now, we started to see as a market a lot of fallout starting in the third week of March. And that's as the pandemic that we're all experiencing, it's as that was happening and starting to magnify, we started to see some fallout. Some of that fallout was from fear, some of that fallout was because of employment, and some of that fallout was because of the type of loan programs and financing options that were no longer available for that particular borrower. So there was a couple of things that were happening at the end of last month that had an impact on the closings. The next report that I'll put over the top is going to be the sales report for pendings for the month of March, and I'll zoom in for you there. There was 290 pendings in the month of March. If you go back 1 year ago, there was 306. So our pendings were down by just over 5% over last year. The important thing to look at with those numbers, when I dissected those, about 60% of pendings in the month of March happened in the first 2 weeks. So by all accounts, we were on track to have a higher pending number than we did a year ago. But of course, halfway through the month, as that pandemic developed, and obviously it became to be impactful on the economy, we started to see our pendings fall off, and that's why 60% were in the first 2 weeks and then 40% roughly or so were in the last 2 weeks. So that's what the pending report looks like. The next topic to go over is just going to be the rental market itself. The rental market in Shasta County prior to this whole episode that we're going through right now was already, pretty tight. I mean, there wasn't a ton of vacancy available, and there wasn't a lot of appreciation in the rents, but it was just going up just a little bit. Remember, we're coming off of last year, the state of California passing that rent control, not allowing property owners to raise rents more rapidly than 10% in a year. So it kind of gives you an understanding of where things were already at in the rental market. What the governor signed in just recently, though, was that they put a policy in place that says that landlords cannot evict a tenant until the end of May. Now, that's essentially what the policy stated. In response to that, though, there's a number of tenants who have decided that they're not going to be paying their rent. Some of it's justified, obviously. If you're losing your job and you don't have income, you have to cut somewhere. But there are some people that are electing to not pay the rent, and as a result of that, the landlord is now absorbing the disruption in cash flow. And so the challenge that we're going to see for property owners that have rental property is that for those property owners that have large mortgages on those rentals, if your income is reduced in terms of what you're receiving from your rental, but you're still required to pay your mortgage, that's going to become problematic for some. And we could expect to see that type of a product perhaps come to the market in the future after people go through this stress testing over the next couple of months of owning a rental and seeing that disruption in cash flow. That might influence some people to decide to sell their rental property. So we'll have to wait to see what happens there. But the unintended consequence of the policy is that some tenants are choosing not to pay, and of course evictions can't start till the end of May. So that's what's happening in the rental market. The next thing to look at is just on mortgages themselves. So the mortgage industry obviously has been disrupted over the last 2 to 3 weeks. We're beginning to see the liquidity in the mortgage market dry up, and we're starting to see loan programs get eliminated, and the types of credit scores that are required to get loans funded are changing as well. One thing that we want to know, more people want to know about, is this mortgage forbearance program that we're hearing both at the state level and at the federal government level. Well, at the state level, the governor was negotiating with some of the bigger banks here in the state of California around the prospect of doing forbearance programs, and some of those lenders have signed on to that program. The federal government, through Fannie and Freddie, who are government-insured loans, anybody that has a Fannie or Freddie loan, they're the ones that actually have that national policy where the forbearance program is available for some of those borrowers as well. So if you're going through a hardship currently and you're looking for some way to release some of the financial pressure, you might want to contact your lender and discuss the option of a forbearance program. These forbearance programs are available to help reduce your monthly obligation on your mortgage and perhaps even eliminate it for a period of time. Now, what all the experts are saying and everything that I'm reading, it appears that you'll be repaying whatever doesn't get paid, but it sounds like the late penalties and fees and things like that would be waived. So just talk with your lender if you're in that situation and get as much information as you can before you make that decision. So that's on the mortgages. The next thing to go over will be new construction. New construction in Shasta County, as well as in the rest of the state, is very vital to the economy. Again, prior to this pandemic, we have to keep in mind that we as a state, we already had a housing shortage. So obviously when they put this stay-at-home regulation on the state, one of the industries that was excluded was new construction for obvious reasons. We're trying to keep the housing construction market going. And here in Shasta County, last week things were really busy, rebuilding homes for the Carr Fire, and some of the spec building that's taking place was still going on. This last week though, or early this week, I drove around and took a look at some of those places, and I have noticed a reduction in the amount of crews that are out there. So I'm suspecting that some of those types of workers are maybe making the decision they would prefer to stay home as that pandemic starts to kind of flare up more here in our state. So we might just see it slow down as a result of employees not wanting to go to work and do those things at this time. So we'll have to wait to see. The long-term effects, though, of this market is that a lot of the contractors that have been building spec builds for the market, they're already running on what I would consider to be razor-thin profit margins to begin with. So it's going to be really important to see what happens with home pricing over the next 3 to 6 months. If there's any major disruption on home pricing, that could have a major impact on spec builders who are currently trying to build those products and sell them to the market. So if that market goes down for a short period of time and it cuts out whatever profit was available, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for a builder. So again, we'll just have to watch and see what happens there. The next topic to go over would be home price expectations. I've been asked this question a lot, and I just want to share a couple of thoughts on this. You know, the difference between volume and supply and demand. You know, the volume in which a home, the frequency in which homes sell, how many sell per month, okay? That doesn't necessarily have a major impact on value. What typically has the biggest impact on value is the supply of products for sale and the demand in which those homes are purchased. So for example, if our supply of homes remains constant and the number of buyers in the market remains constant, then we could expect that pricing will remain constant. Now, if inventory happens to, spike and go up dramatically, and at the same time the buyer demand stays the same or goes down, well, then that could have an impact on value, causing value to also go down. And then of course the reverse could happen. We could start to see inventory going down, buyer demand to remain constant, and that could have an impact on pricing going up. So right now, currently, it appears that homeowners are reducing their chances of getting infected by not coming to the market at the same frequency. So we're starting to see listings slow down. And even though buyer demand is slowing down, if listings available starts to slow down with it, pricing will likely remain fairly stable, at least in the short term. In the longer term, we're going to have some challenges with employment and things like that as we come out of this epidemic. So we're just going to have to watch closely and see how those things transpire. So in any case, that's your market update for the month of April. If you have any questions, just know we're always here to help. Thanks again for taking your time with us today. We'll all get through this together. Take care.